It's time for Come and Talk It with your host, Michael Cargill, brought to you by Texas Law Shield. Over the last decade, Michael has championed and supported the rights of law-abiding Texans to own and use firearms. He is the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, a veteran of the United States Army, and has achieved national exposure in such prestigious media outlets such as Forbes Magazine, Fox Business News, CNN Money, AOL, BBC World News, Huffington Post, and the New York Times. Cargill vigorously defends lawful gun ownership in this country without regard to party politics. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
Good day, Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. All right, so a mother runs into the school in Uvalde, elementary school there, while police are cowering in the hallway and outside. I'm so disturbed by this whole story and how it's all playing out. It's very sad. There's nothing I can't explain. You can't explain. You can't lay it out. And what goes to a person's mind that shoots their grandmother in the face. What goes to a person's mind that walks into an elementary school and shoots babies, little kids. That evil I cannot explain. And so. But what bothers me past that point is, the just lack of preparedness, of the school itself, and then the lack of training by the law enforcement in that area. I mean, we found out, way back during the Columbine shooting. Whenever we had Columbine, law enforcement got together and they came up with tactics. They say, okay, we need to look at this differently. Because of Columbine, because they were waiting outside for a tactical team to get together to breach the building, and that time elapsed, and it was just a complete cluster, they said, we're going to go forward and do this differently. The first group of police officers that arrive on the scene, 2, 3, 4, you go in, 3, 4-man teams, you go in, you breach that school, you go in, you're going for the shooter to stop the shooter immediately. They're supposed to step over bodies. They're going straight for the shooter until that shooter has stopped, and then start getting, getting everyone out, people that are wounded and all that stuff. This was back in, we discovered this plan was laid out after Columbine. And then also when we had this shooting in Texas at the high school just a few years ago, they said, look, what we need to do in Texas because of this high school shooting is we need to make sure we count the doors and make sure all these doors are locked and secured. So there was a whole conference about securing schools, locking doors, how many doors the school has, and all this stuff. And here we are in Uvalde. Someone props a teacher or someone we don't know, props a door open. This guy wrecks his vehicle, and the timeline is so screwed up. Tim McGraw, the director for the Texas Department of Public Safety, it's a cluster. It's all the cluster because the timeline that they're giving us makes no sense whatsoever. There's so many holes. There's so many questions. Every time they give this press conference, there are more questions than answers. Here we are. We're talking 11:27 a.m. The door was propped open by a teacher. 11:28. The car crashes that the shooter was in, not too far away from the school. At 11:30, the first 911 call goes out from someone at what was it? It was a funeral home, because apparently he jumped out of his vehicle and shot at someone at a funeral home located not too far from the school. 11:31, shooting started, just outside the school. 11:33, shooting continued. 11:35, police are apparently on the scene. 11:35. After 434 officers arrived on the scene, they should have breached and gone inside the school to chase down and stop this shooter. 11:37, gunfire continue. And then the timeline gets all screwed up. I heard 11:50, he was shot. I heard 12:50, during this press conference. It was so messed up and so confusing on the timeline. But here's the thing. You go to the 911 call, you had an elementary school child on the phone, little baby on the phone at 12:03 calling 911 in room 112, begging for police to come and save them. She hung up. At 12:10, she calls back again. 911, please come and save us. We're in room 112. At 12:13, she calls again. 911, please come and save us. We're in room 112. At 12:16, she calls again. Same child. 911, please come and save us. And apparently at this time, the 19 police officers were outside the door in the hallway, according to Steve McGraw. And this continues on. And they did not go into the room to stop this shooter until about 12:43, 12:47 p.m. We're talking, my goodness, over an hour has passed by. We figured this out long ago. When it comes to shootings, you're supposed to, the first group of police officers arrive on the scene, go in as teams. The next group shows up, you go in as teams. Next group shows up, you go in as a team. You go in, you're going straight for that shooter to stop the shooter. You had school resource officers that arrived on the scene early on. Why didn't the school resource officers have keys to the doors to the classroom, a master key? This is a complete cluster. You're the school resource officer for this particular school, and you can't get entry into a room? What is your job? Complete cluster. And all I'm hearing are excuses. I have more questions than I do answers. And then what happens? A mother is trying to get to her child. A mother drives 40 minutes to the school after hearing about the shooting. She stops what she's doing, jumps in her car, drives 40 minutes. Police try to stop her. They hold her down. They handcuff this mother, this mama bear. Handcuff her. They finally release her from handcuffs, and she bolts for the school immediately. She goes in and she grabs her 2 kids and she pulls them out. A mother, while the police were cowering outside. Uvalde Police Department. Your TAC teams. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the breakdown is, but we need to get this together. This should have been a plan that was practiced, and it should have been executed without mistake, without flaw. This is something that is, they should have planned for years. We're talking the high school. There've been so many shootings around this country. So many different, procedures have come out, and it just should have been very simple, not a question of what should have been done. The parents should not have been waiting outside, begging police officers to go inside to save their children. You have, how many were shot and killed?
19.
19. 19. And this is just sad. Sad situation. Very sad. And then I get phone calls from head of law enforcement agencies, from around the country saying, Michael, would you please support raising the age of someone purchasing a firearm to 21 years of age? Absolutely not. I need you guys to do your job. Unless we're going to raise the age of someone going into the military to 21. Unless we're going to raise the age of someone to be able to vote to 21. Unless we're going to raise the age of someone being able to drive a car to 21. Unless we're going to raise the age of someone being able to change their sex to 21. Let's keep it real. No, absolutely not. We don't want to have that conversation. We come back from the break. We got more. We're going to break this down. We're going to talk about the parents. I want you to hear from the grandfather. This is sad. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Folks, this is Dougman Jones. And I get my gun news from Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.
U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, we're going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back, and we got a video from the father of the alleged shooter, Uvalde. Take a listen to this.
Room alone?
Yes. Sometimes he would go. I'd take him to work with me. Not all the time, but I would take him to work.
And it didn't seem like he went to school very often.
No, well, this past year he didn't go to school. He didn't graduate, but he didn't go to school.
Why?
I don't know. You tell them, and they think they know kids nowadays. They know everything.
Did you notice that he was growing disturbed? Was he becoming upset? Was he any different?
He was very quiet. He was very quiet.
Everybody says he almost didn't talk very much.
No, he didn't talk very much.
Did he talk to you?
Oh, just when we go to work or here or there,
What kind of
very, very, very seldom.
What kind of things would you talk about?
No, we never did have a conversation. Just I remember he would tell me sometimes. I remember when I was little, I would carry him, and he would tell me things like that.
Why didn't he live with his mother?
They had probably problems or something.
And so it was his birthday last Monday? Turned 18?
Yeah, on the
16th.
On the 16th or something. Yeah, last week I think it was birthday.
Yeah.
My wife took him to Applebee's to eat supper or dinner or whatever. It's a shame.
Did you know that he bought those weapons?
No. Like I say, I don't like weapons. I
Yeah.
cannot be around weapons.
Because you have a record.
Yeah.
And it's illegal for you to actually be
Yeah,
around.
that's right. I cannot be around guns. I hate when I see all the news, all those people that get shot. I'm against all that. I say, why do they let these people buy guns and all that? Those stupid whatever they shoot.
And Rolando, when you heard about the shooting, what did you do? Did you even know that it was your grandson?
No, the neighbor called me. He told me she had been shot. And when I came over here, he told me that he had taken off on the...
And your grandson didn't have a driver's license, right?
No.
He didn't even know how to drive.
No.
What went through your mind when you heard?
I didn't
It's
say
your
nothing.
grandson.
It still hasn't sunk in yet,
course.
you believe me.
And so, did he ever talk about guns or weapons with you? Did he talk about being upset or angry?
No.
Saying it came out of the blue. If you could have done anything differently,
Oh,
would you have done?
I didn't know he had weapons or nothing or this or that there. If I would have known, I would have reported him.
You would have reported your own grandson.
All right, so this, it always goes back to parenting. The fact that this young man stayed with his grandparents who are, they're grandparents, they're older. Can't keep up with a young man who's 17, just turned 18. He's now 18 years old. Can't keep up with him the way a young mother or father could. So he's staying with the grandparents. Grandparents are trying to work, do what they're doing. He had to be involved in something else, other than working with the grandfather not going to school. Because look, let's talk about the type of rifles that he purchased. Because people are saying, oh, he was a poor kid and he was picked on in school. I'm not buying that, because he bought the most expensive AR-15 that you can buy on the market. He didn't go and get a Diamondback rifle. It cost like, $600. He bought a Daniel Defense, AR-15. You're talking almost $2,000. He bought a DDM-4 V7 rifle, cost $1,946 after taxes. He had an EOTech XPS-2 scope on it. That cost $677 after taxes. He also had a Springfield Army Saint AR-15 that cost $1,013 after taxes. He had 4,000 rounds of ammo at 49 cents a round. You're looking at $2,075 after taxes. So after everything, you add it all together, you're talking, both these rifles along with the ammo cost $5,711. That's not something that a poor kid can afford on his own without his parents helping him.
Yeah, poor high school kid.
Oh, poor high school kid.
I was reading that he worked at Burger King part-time. You're not buying that on a Burger King salary.
$5,711? Oh, come on. I'm not buying that. Not buying that at all. Not one bit. And this is what do you got to say, Gary? It's just crazy.
No, I agree. It sounds like he had issues with his mom, and nothing was really done about it. I mean, what would be the protocol in that situation?
There's something wrong with the mother. The fact that this kid's staying with the grandparents and not with the mother or the father. Something's wrong with the father. Something's wrong with the mother. Both those parents. The fact they dumped their kid.
Well, every time there's one of these shootings, it seems like the parents are clueless. They're just not even involved in their kid's life.
Because they don't. Yeah, they just don't know what's going on, and that's sad. You don't know what's happening with your kid. You're not raising your kids. They're raising themselves, or the streets are raising them, and that's why no one knows what's going on, because you're not involved in them. You don't. My mother knew everything that was going on with me back then. Unfortunately, I'm telling my age. We didn't have cell phones and things of that nature, but she was always, in my stuff and digging through my stuff in the room, find out what I was involved in and what I was getting into.
So he had body armor, he had a bunch of ammo, he had 2 rifles.
Well, correction, he had a plate carrier with no plates.
Oh,
yeah, it had no plates in it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah,
Must have misread that.
Yeah. So and according to what they're
but he did buy 2 ARs.
2 ARs, right?
Yeah.
One was a Daniel Defense and one was a Springfield Armory. You're talking.
Those aren't cheap.
No, you're talking $5,700. 17-year-old just turned 18. As soon as he turned 18, he goes to the store just days ago and purchases and pays $5,700 for guns and ammunition. That's not something that a poor kid can do. And you don't pick the most expensive rifle. If you're going to get a rifle and you're poor, you're probably going to pick something that costs around the $600 range, not $5,700.
At most an M&P or something like that.
Yeah, Smith & Wesson M&P or Diamondback. Not a Daniel Defense, the top of the line, the most expensive. One of the most expensive rifles out there. No, not at all. I'm not buying this poor. Let's feel sorry for him.
And he had 7 mags too.
Yes,
7 mags. I mean, this. Yeah.
Didn't count for that. I gotta add to that total.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this guy had like $6,000.
Yeah. Gotta add it. It goes higher.
I just don't understand how he would have been able to obtain that as a high school student working at Burger King.
Yeah, don't know. And the parents, the fact that you had parents that drove, one mother drove 40 minutes to get to the school, and was held, detained, handcuffed by law enforcement. And then eventually they let her out of handcuffs, and she darted for the school, goes through and gets her kids and comes out to school. That's a mama bear right there. While the police are still outside.
Now, what would have stopped this in the immediate would have been armed security at the school, armed teachers.
There are a couple things that should have happened, because what was the high school? What was the name of that high school in Texas a few years? Santa Fe High School.
And what was that, in El Paso?
No, that was just outside of Houston. So Santa Fe High School, when they had that shooting, everyone got together and said, okay, we need to do better. What can we do? Because we have the plan of what's supposed to happen as far as teams, police officers arrive, and and whoever arrives first, 2-3 man teams, you go in and you breach the building. You're looking for the shooter. You stop the shooter, step over dead bodies. We got to look for the shooter and stop it. So then they said, okay, let's look at the doors. There's so many doors at these schools, and doors are the problem. So we need to figure out, how do we get rid of some of these doors? How do we lock some of these doors? How do we secure them?
Well, they have a prison-style lock system in a lot of schools now, where they're locked from the inside automatically, and they can be electronically opened, correct?
Right. And then I actually went to the gun range with a few companies, and we tested, we put to the test glass, and specifically for schools, and we actually, the glass that we tested, the way we did this test was, this glass was designed so that teachers who were armed inside the school would be able to shoot outside the school to hit the shooter trying to get into the building, but the shooter could not shoot inside the school. And so a lot of schools were supposed to get this glass to, make sure the doors are locked. You have the secure glass, boom, and here's the big problem. The big problem is, your law enforcement, your security officers, your police officers, your resource officers are usually at the high school or the middle school, because we're using police officers as disciplinary, individuals or security to keep kids in line, rather than for security for the school and to stop shooters. So the elementary schools
open, which is why elementary schools keep getting hit.
Exactly.
So here's my question then, Michael.
No one's protecting the babies.
Why even bother with school security, arming school security? Why not have police officers, local police, city police, county sheriffs, stuff like that? Why don't we have them stationed have 1 or 2 police officers stationed at each school?
No, I say arm the teachers.
Well, that too.
Every single teacher that wants to carry a gun, you let them carry a gun.
Well, let's say
not everyone can carry a gun, but if they're willing to learn, they're willing to get trained, they should be able to do it.
For sake of argument, let's say that there's no teacher that wants to carry a gun at said school. Why not just have a police officer stationed at the school? I mean, it's better than them just sitting around and radaring people speeding.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's definitely a better use of taxpayer money.
Correct. I agree 100%. Instead, we're trying to, we're trying to tax people instead of, save lives.
Okay, so here's my big question.
We come back from the break. We're going to talk more about this, and we're going to get deep into it. We also got some other news that we're going to cover as well. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jack Jones here, and I get my gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean, or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you, without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights, and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
Uvalde shooting. The mothers were the heroes, and the cops apparently were the cowards. As this comes out, and I hope it hurts, and I hope it hurts with a grain of salt, and it stings the wound, because this should never, ever happen again. We should never be in this predicament again, because we're going to lose something as the Second Amendment community. Come January, between January and June of 2023, something's going to happen. Something will happen on the national level. Something's going to happen on the state level, because of this particular shooting incident right here and how it all played out. Because everything failed. And it's always like that. All the different shootings, the parents, grandparents, always fail the system, always fail us. The law enforcement, it's just a complete breakdown of everything. And that's why we end up in situations like this. And then you were asking Gary during the break, why didn't, police officers go in? Why did they stay in the hallway?
Right.
Because apparently there was 19 police officers in the hallway, waiting to go in. And whoever was in charge said, no, we're gonna hold our position right here. We're not going in because the suspect is barricaded in the room. And it was bad information. This is a school shooting, and their thoughts were the suspect is barricaded in the room and the kids were not in danger. That's impossible. If you have the entire school in school, then the kids are in danger.
Yeah.
that makes no sense. Rounds can go through walls, hit kids, whatever, in another room, or another hallway. So to say that the kids are not in danger, he's just barricaded in a room, we're going to hold our position and wait for a tactical team to show up, for an entire hour.
40 minutes.
Is incompetent.
40 minutes, yeah.
Incompetence.
And what's even more pathetic is that ultimately it was a Border Patrol agent that shot and killed Ramos, not even a city cop or a state trooper. It was a Border Patrol agent.
Or the Independent School District Police Department.
Or anything. Security. A father or a mother. I guess there was a mother that did try to enter the building and ultimately did, right?
Right.
She ran into the school and she was handcuffed, and then I guess she was unhandcuffed and ran into the school and got her kid out.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought was interesting was that you said the mother ended up being the hero here, saving her kid, and these women outside and the parents outside were trying to get in and save their kids while the police sat around and did essentially nothing for almost an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost ironic that the mother of the shooter could be argued that she's very responsible for this, given that her son showed psychotic tendencies and some stuff like that. But she actually stated in an interview with ABC News that her son was, quote, not a monster, but that he could, quote, be aggressive.
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You kill 19 kids, you're a monster, right?
Automatically, he shot 19 elementary school kids. You're in the dictionary. There's a picture of him that says monster.
Yeah. And to further back up how, I don't know, maybe what the term is, just oblivious or irresponsible, out of touch the mother was. Here's another quote. I had an uneasy feeling sometimes, like, what are you up to? He can be aggressive if he really got mad. Well, if you have an uneasy feeling about your son who's purchasing firearms, maybe you should talk to him or be a mother or be involved. He lived with his grandparents. Well, there's a disconnection here between the shooter and his parents.
I think she's just backpedaling. I think she's just a liar. I think she's just an incompetent mother that was totally, out of touch and out of contact with her son at all, living her own life, doing whatever she was doing, had no knowledge whatsoever of what her son was doing, and she raised this monster.
Look, this is another quote from this lady. I mean, nothing that comes out of her mouth is. She said, "We all have a rage that some people have it more than others." Well, not everybody has rage.
No.
And if you do, and you think we all do, then I'm assuming the father does, and obviously the shooter, the son does. But, if you think your son has rage, maybe you should check in on him. She said that she was not even aware that her son was purchasing weapons.
And that's, he's not going to school when he's supposed to, didn't graduate.
He didn't go to school for an entire year.
Didn't go to school. Didn't graduate when he was supposed to. Then as a mother, you're not doing something right. And then the grandfather says, we try to get them to go to school, but they think they know everything, and they're not. So obviously the grandparents can't do it. So what are they doing? We'll pray and hope, and we'll just pray and hope that he goes to school is what we'll do. We'll just pray and hope that he does the right thing.
I want to know if the kid was medicated, because a lot of the times these shooters are on some sort of antipsychotic drug.
I don't know, but what I do know, this is bad parenting. They're ethically responsible for this monster. They brought this monster into the world. They raised this monster. This is going to be the mother's fault. This is on her conscience, and this is something she's going to have to deal with and have to sleep with. Hopefully, she'll realize that she's a terrible mother, and she raised a monster, and he's in a good place right now.
Yeah, at least he's dead.
Sorry.
I never think it's a positive thing to house the shooters personally, because we just end up spending taxpayer money to keep these people alive when they don't deserve it.
Right. Oh, man.
So we were going to talk about why. Okay, so why did the police not enter the building? They were given conflicting reports on what was occurring.
What do you mean?
Like, they said that they were the shooter had barricaded himself in a room.
Right. So apparently whoever was in charge on the scene, the top, law enforcement agency officer on the scene said, okay, the suspect is barricaded in the room and the kids are not in danger. So they're going to wait in the hallway. 19 police officers going to hold their position until the tactical team arrived on the scene to breach the door. They also couldn't find keys to get into certain rooms or something like that. They couldn't find a key to get into the room. Which is all very strange to me, because the first officers that were on the scene were from the independent school district of that area. You're the independent school district police officer. Why don't you have access or keys or a master key to get into a room? This should have been all thought out and planned out, long before now. And, I would think that's common sense. I'm the resource officer, independent school district police officer for a particular school. I should have keys to gain entry into every room. That makes no sense to me. What are you looking at?
I mean, I'm reading this. There's just there's even conflicting reports about what the police are reporting to the press.
Right.
But the Uvalde City School District reportedly retains its own police department. Mm-hmm. The school district has a police department.
That's correct.
With a chief.
Correct.
5 cops.
Correct.
And a security guard.
That's right.
So there's 6 of them.
Right.
And allegedly, according to The Intercept, they engaged Ramos as he approached Robb Elementary's back door. And then ultimately, McCraw said that they were able to make it into the school.
So what happened was what
do they mean by engaged?
The security officer.
He was carrying a rifle.
Right. Well, apparently the security officer that arrived on the scene drove past him because he was crouched down low or somewhere, wherever he was, and thought that a teacher on the side of the building was the shooter. When he realized that was not the shooter, he doubled back. By that time, the shooter was inside the building and started exchanging fire with him and exchanged fire with him and went into the building. So they totally, it was just botched.
Well, not to mention he crashed a truck into a ditch on the way there.
Right.
So this guy gave them ample opportunity to prevent this as it was happening in real time.
Right. This is why people should be armed. This is why the people that lived across the street from the school, near the school. This is why I carry all the time. Because you just never know. I don't go to bad places. I don't expect bad things to happen. But I do carry just in case. It's like wearing a seatbelt. I don't expect to get into a car accident, but I wear a seatbelt just in case I get into a car accident. So same thing with the firearm. And man, I tell you, this situation right here, this opened my eyes and made me realize, good Lord, I need to think about my plans and my security and things of that nature as well. Because, police are not coming. They're not coming to save you.
So, okay, here's another thing.
If they're not gonna come when a child is on the phone, 911, begging them, calling them 4 or 5 times to please come inside and save us. This is the room number that we're in. Please come and save us. If they can't save an elementary school child, they're not communicating. The 911 dispatcher is not communicating with the police officer on the scene. This is a complete breakdown, and this is sad.
If the police aren't going to show up when a 10-year-old calls them and says someone is murdering and massacring everyone in my school, if the police don't show up for that phone call, what makes you think they're ever going to show up for a grown man or a grown woman for any other crime?
And all these people that are talking about, defunding the police and we need to make sure that we fund our police departments. We need to make sure we have better training. We need to make sure.
You think more money in the police system would have prevented this? Honestly,
more police officers and better training and not being complacent. Yes.
What do you mean more police officers? There was a gang of them outside just standing around.
Lack of training and complacent.
I don't think money can fix that, though.
You don't think training can?
I think training can, but we used to dump a bunch of money into our police departments,
Right.
And you know what happens? Money gets wasted on what are those anti-aircraft tanks? You know what I'm talking about? They buy. It's a lot of financial waste, in my opinion. Here's another thing I wanted to bring up here.
Go ahead.
When after Ramos crashed his truck, by that time he had sent 3 direct messages and texted someone on Facebook and on his phone. He sent 3 messages. He outlined his plans to shoot his grandmother, sent a second saying that he had done it, and then said he was headed for an elementary school next. Then he texted a teenage girl in Germany, a 15-year-old. So it's parenting is at fault. Police are at fault. But also, just community and humanity in general here. Why did this 15? I mean, what's the deal with this this girl that he was texting?
Well, I don't expect someone in Germany to be able to reach law enforcement in enough time.
Well, that's something you could report to Facebook. I mean, it's through social media, right?
Yeah, it won't be picked up in time though, because that's happening real time, real quick. I don't. That might be unrealistic. Who do you report it to on Facebook? I don't even know.
Well, I think you just shake your phone and it says report. It's not hard.
Really?
Yeah, I just don't know what the turnaround time is on something like that.
I don't even know how to do it. Yeah. So
well, he had also talked about shooting up a school prior to this.
Right. So where is that? I haven't seen that at all.
It was on 4chan.
All right. When we come back from the break, we have some other stories we're going to cover as well. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, we all observe something that makes us upset. Whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. By all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle, and they are not in contact with your vehicle, and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
We're talking about Uvalde Elementary School. We're talking about mothers, parents going into the school to save their kids while the police were outside. We're talking about what was the breakdown. We're talking about law enforcement standing in the hallway, not following any procedure that we've talked about since Columbine. You know, procedures have been in place ever since the Columbine high school shooting, that whenever a team, whoever arrives on the scene in teams of 2, 3, 4, whatever, you go into the building, you stop that shooter, you end this madness, and you start rescuing the survivors and getting the, wounded out and, getting the other people out of the area to safety. This is, back in Columbine. We talked about it once, we had the high school shooting in Texas a few years ago. We talked about the doors. We talked about securing the doors, locking the doors, talked about glass at schools, the high schools, the middle schools, elementary schools, talked about security. We talked about the fact that the elementary schools are the ones that never have law enforcement at all. No one's protecting the babies, and we need to start doing that. We talked about that years ago. And here we are again. And it all failed. Nothing worked. Everything failed by the wayside. People are bringing up the fact that, this guy was 18 years old. We need to raise the age limit of purchasing a firearm to 21 years of age. Well, what are you going to do? We're going to raise the age limit for people to join the military to 21 then. Are we going to raise the age limit to someone to drive a car to 21 then? We're going to raise the age, where do you go with that? Where do you stop? You have to ask yourself that. They're saying, well, the majority of these shooters, are, 18 years old. Not true. The majority of the shooters are younger than 25. And so since they're younger than 25, are you going to say, hey, we should raise the age to purchase a firearm to 26 years old?
Raise the age to vote while you're at it.
Right. Where do you stop with that? So when you look at the numbers, if you're going to follow the numbers and look at the stats, then, and looking at the majority of the shooters, then 26 should be the magic age then. I disagree. I don't think changing a law, creating a new law, no, there's nothing that we can do. We can't create any new laws because you cannot legislate crazy. It takes a crazy person to walk into a school to shoot innocent children. It takes a crazy person to shoot their grandmother.
Bad parenting.
Who does that?
Yeah.
He shot his grandmother. God, that is some evil that I do not understand, and I hope I never meet. And let's take a look in what's going on in the Austin area. So over in Austin, you have multiple Austin area schools react to social media threats following the Uvalde shooting.
Right.
It's like a reaction, and it happens all the time. Whenever there's a shooting and the media talks about this, then there's more shootings, more threats. It's like it's triggering the crazies. And I used to talk to the press, the media, and I said, why do you guys, why do you always, why don't you talk about, suicides and things like that?
I was literally just bringing this up. I was just going to bring this up. Have you heard of the idea, like the tipping point, that theory?
No,
so there's a book called The Tipping Point, and I read it a long time ago, and they use this example of how things trend, like suicide and mass shootings. There's actually a correlation. And in the South Pacific islands of Micronesia, there was a teenager who couldn't decide between two lovers or whatever. Long story short, there had never been a suicide in a very, very, very long time. Killed himself. And then after that, there was a ripple effect, and there were a bunch of suicides in a very short period of time. And I think the same thing is happening with mass shootings.
Right.
There's one mass shooting in 1999 at Columbine, and since then, it's exponential. It's out of control. It's copycat
contest
stuff. And it's a lot of times it's people who have mental health problems, poor parenting, and generally some sort of prescription medication that's probably not working very well. But nonetheless, I was going to say the suicide. It's the same thing,
right?
So there was a tipping point that we reached in the United States with mass shootings, and this is just going to keep getting worse unless something's done. But nobody wants to do the obvious thing, which, in my opinion, and I think you agree with me, is to have armed security or teachers or police at the schools.
Oh yeah, definitely arm the teachers. I think
Same thing with churches, because that's another place where this always happens, because churches and schools are places where everybody's always looking in one direction. There's usually one person that can see the door, right? Like we talked about. The whole congregation is pointed one way.
Right. Their back is to the door.
And generally people are not armed in those places, and it's there's large populations there.
I believe in praising the Lord and passing ammunition, boy. Let me tell you.
Yep, damn straight.
All right, so also, the NRA the NRA conference is this weekend. So that starts. I think it starts today or tomorrow, and so now a lot of our Texas elected officials are backing out of that. So the governor's backed down from that. He's going to give a recorded speech. Instead, he's going to spend some time in Uvalde. Lieutenant governor is not going to attend anymore. So it's looking like, to my last time I checked, Ted Cruz looks like it's going to be the only one. So we'll see if Ted Cruz pulls it down.
What about Trump?
Trump is going to speak. He's scheduled to speak. Do you know the reason I don't attend the NRA conference? You know why? Because the president speaks, they don't allow you to carry. And I don't that's right. And I don't go to places I can't carry at the NRA conference.
That's the most hypocritical thing I've ever heard.
It is. And I was like, I'm not going there.
Wow.
Not going.
Ted Cruz, speaking of him, he doubled down on his gun stance, actually.
Did he? What'd he say? Yeah, I thought it was strange. It's like, man, the NRA conference. You mean to tell me I cannot carry my gun to the NRA conference?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the NRA is full of it for a number of reasons. A few hours after the Uvalde school shooting left 19 elementary school children and 2 teachers dead, Ted Cruz told a group of reporters that policies to restrict guns were off the table. That doesn't work. It's not effective. It doesn't prevent crime.
It doesn't, and I agree with him 100%. He's absolutely correct. You cannot legislate crazy. You cannot create new laws. What do you do that, how do you stop a person that steals a vehicle, hops a curve and runs over, 2 dozen, 3 dozen people, injure them? We just saw this happen.
Right.
We talked about this. What do you do? Do you go after the car dealership? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you go after the manufacturer of the vehicle?
Yeah, and whenever people say, oh, well, in Britain, they outlawed guns and mass shootings went down. And yeah, and you know what went up? Mass stabbings. They're at one point, London eclipsed the New York's murder rate, and it was all with knives. There's acid being thrown on people in trains. There's people running over people with cars. I mean, this
Pushed in front of trains.
This stuff has always happened. It always will happen. Maybe the baby boomer generation was coddled a little bit because they didn't deal with as much stuff as this. But if you go back 200 years, look back in, like during the frontier times, people were murdered all the time. It's part of life. Not to sound very cynical and nihilistic almost, but it is part of life. Carry a gun. Protect yourself. Nobody's going to come save you.
Right.
Take ownership of your life and your safety.
If I can't carry there, I'm not going there. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just don't like the NRA.
I like the NRA. I like the NRA. I just don't like that. So and I understand why it's happening. I think the reasoning behind that is because I'm sure Secret Service has something to do with it, because former president of the United States is giving a speech, and during that time that he's speaking, they're not going to allow anyone to have guns in that area, that auditorium, while he's there.
You know how many people are expected over the 3-day event?
How many people?
Just guess.
1 million.
No. 70,000.
Oh, that's it?
Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
70,000?
Yeah.
You said 1 million? You're crazy.
Well, you just never know. It's a big event. It's the NRA's annual conference. You're talking miles and miles of displays, and you're talking manufacturers, all around the world, the country, that are in one location, kind of like the SHOT Show. It's like another version of the SHOT Show, where all your manufacturers get together and stuff like that. And this is that time of year for that. New things, new products are out there, and people want to see those new products and all that stuff.
Our boy from Defense Distributors is going.
Yeah, a lot of people. The Texas State Rifle Association is going to have a booth right there at the entrance. So they're going to be there. Texas State Rifle Association. Cody Wilson from Defense Distributors is going to be there.
Christy Nome from South Dakota is going to be there too.
That's a good reason to go. I actually want to see Christy Nome. I actually want to meet her. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a pretty big event, and I always get asked to attend that event. I was like, no, I'm not going, because if I can't carry, I don't go to places I can't carry. Sorry, right. And I'm serious about that. This is not a joke for me.
Well, the executive vice president Wayne LaPierre, who's under scrutiny for corruption and whatnot, he's still speaking as well.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and it's going to be a good event. Outside of, they're going to have protesters. That's something they're going to have to deal with. Because we just had a really bad situation that happened.
Oh, yeah.
And since the event is still going on, they're going to have to deal with that, going in and leaving the event. So unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. But when we come back, I do want to talk about, we have Cruz. Well, oh man, I think we covered just about everything. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to cover. There's some other stories, some other news going on around the world. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It. What do we have?
This is Chloe Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back, and let's talk about Beto O'Rourke. Robert Francis O'Rourke. He goes back and forth on his stance. Way back.
Hell yes.
That's right. Way back when he was running for president, what did he say again? What did he say?
He said, hell yes. We're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
And then, he runs for Senate, against Ted Cruz, and he waters that down a little bit and says, he doesn't have plans for taking anyone's firearms away.
That guy is so full of it.
and then, now he's back to, what is it again? What did he say he's going to do? One more time. Now.
Hell yes. We're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47. We're not going to allow it to be used against our fellow Americans anymore.
And do you know that the AR-15 is the most popular rifle, in this country? And you're talking about confiscating them. You're talking about banning them. That will cause more problems than they think it's going to happen. If you were to ban or you were to go after people and confiscate their AR-15s, their rifles, that is a problem you do not. That's that hornet's nest you do not want to stir.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's the road we do not want to travel. And so, by this guy saying this, and if this was to happen, man, I'm telling you now, I'm barricading myself in my house because some bad stuff is going to happen out there. It's just, I don't want to come outside. I'd rather stay inside the house and work from home because bad things will definitely happen, if that was to take place. So please do not do that. You're going to it makes for a really bad world, trying to confiscate people, things that people purchase.
Roberto over there, every time I hear about him in the news, it's not really in a good light, Right. I believe when he interrupted that conference with Abbott, the mayor of Uvalde or someone in local government, they were like, you're an idiot. Shut up.
I know. Do we even have wait a minute. Can we even play that?
Is there swearing?
There's a little swearing in that. Okay. All right. Take a listen to this.
Yeah.
Sit down. You're out of line and an embarrassment. Sit down and don't play this stuff.
The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue. It's on assholes like you. Why don't you get out of here?
So, man, I tell you, this whole thing is just like it's like I wish I could sit at home with some popcorn.
It's
and
like
watch it
watching
all.
a soap opera.
Yeah.
Now, what I think's interesting about this is that Robert Francis is enough of a narcissist to think this is a good play, even from even from an optics standpoint. I mean, who sees somebody interrupt a press conference and thinks that that's a good move?
Right.
I mean, this is a town that's mourning dead kids, and he shows up and makes it about himself. I mean, that's my take on it. Hey, to emphasize how horrible of a job the police department did in Uvalde, I brought up this article from the New York Times that it's outlining this training program based in Texas that's considered the national standard. And during an active shooting investigation, American law enforcement officers are taught that their response should focus on two principles. Number one, stop the killing. Number two, stop the dying. So if those are the principal tenets of what your reaction is supposed to be, they didn't do either of those. You know, so it's very bizarre how they didn't contain anything. They didn't contain any carnage. They didn't neutralize the gunman. They didn't. I mean, Michael, name one thing they did right. I don't even think they really were getting medical aid to anyone. And not only that, they were stopping people that were trying to go in to save the day. Border Patrol ended up saving the day.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing. They did nothing right.
Literally nothing.
Nothing.
It's pathetic.
Nothing. You know, you're hearing shots being fired. You know,
and they were in the hallway. That makes even less sense. When you told me they were in the hallway, I didn't even realize that.
They're right there. They heard everything, you know, and still not go in.
And
to say that they thought that the shooter was just barricaded in and they're just going to hold the position, that's a lie. That's a lie.
Dude, because they know that they screwed up so bad.
That's a lie.
That they're trying to save face. You know, the police department in this situation kind of sounds similar to the mom. I feel bad. I didn't know it was a monster. We feel bad. We didn't know what was really going on. No accountability.
None whatsoever.
No, and it appears to me that they're not even really that sorry. They might feel guilty, but if you're not taking accountability for the blood on your hands, you're not actually sorry for your actions.
Like
you're trying to shirk responsibility.
They don't think you're stupid. They
know you're stupid.
Always said, they don't think you're stupid. They definitely know you're stupid. And they're pulling the wool over your eyes because this is just sloppy work here. Sloppy.
Yeah, and then people are going to blame guns. So not only are there's kids dying, there's national conversation about this, and you're putting other people's rights at risk of being pulled by the government because you're not doing your job, because you don't have the coordination / balls to do the right thing. But you know how I feel about the our wonderful police officers.
And let's talk about Daniel Defense. All right, so when it comes to Daniel Defense, they backed out. Daniel Defense is not going to go to the NRA conference. So the manufacturer of a rifle used by the gunman in a deadly Uvalde elementary school shooting said it has canceled its appearance at the annual NRA convention, which opened today in Houston.
Why?
All right. The Black Creek, Georgia-based company is one of several late withdrawals from the event, which is being held just days after a gunman killed 19 school children and 2 teachers at an elementary school. In a statement on its website, the gunmaker said that it is our understanding that the firearm used in the attack was manufactured by Daniel Defense. The shooter, who had bought 2 rifles prior to the massacre, brought only one of the guns into the school with him, which was the AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle made by Daniel Defense, according to this news article. And the National Rifle Association convention, the annual meeting, draws together firearms companies, gun enthusiasts, and lawmakers, mostly,
Oh my God.
What?
I just got this story from the New York Post. It's just a thumbnail. I haven't had time to read it yet, but listen to this.
All right, go ahead.
Tell me your immediate emotional reaction to this.
Go for it.
New York Post. Texas school shooter Salvador Ramos' mother speaks out. Forgive me. Forgive my son. Furthermore, another quote. He had his reasons for doing what he did. Please don't judge him.
Ooh, I told you something's wrong with the mother.
Number of things not to say.
I told you.
Number one. That's horrible, man.
I told you something's wrong with
What
his
is
mother.
going on with this lady?
I told you.
It's not guns. This ain't guns. This is poor parenting, psychological problems, people that shouldn't be having kids. This kid should have been aborted. Come at me.
Oh, man. All right, so and apparently other people are dropping out of the national conference, the NRA conference as well. So not just Daniel Defense. So we'll see how this plays out over the weekend, going into Sunday.
Hey, I was going to ask you too. Why are they pulling out? I don't understand they manufacture firearms. They've got nothing to do with this. This is not their monkey, not their circus. Why are they pulling out of the NRA event?
And see, I never attend this event, like I told you, because of the fact that you can't carry is my main reason. So I don't go to the National Rifle Association's annual meeting. But I wouldn't cancel if I was planning on going because of this. As an elected official, I can see. As an elected official, it'd be heartless, people are mourning, there are funerals that are going to be planned this weekend. And if you're attending a conference in Houston, you're not attending, paying homage to the family members.
Right.
That I understand as an elected official. But as a company who was planning on attending this event, there's no reason for you to cancel.
Yeah,
you're not responsible for that.
I agree.
If you didn't do it.
Yeah. If you're a public servant, which is any politician, any senator, any congressman, congresswoman, you should pay your respects and show respect to the families that lost the victims and really just the whole town. But if you're manufacturing guns and you're going to a gun event, it doesn't make sense why they would pull out. I think that's weird.
Yeah. Well.
Texas school shooter Salvador Ramos tried. Why do I keep saying Ramos? Ramos. Tried to buy a gun for 8 months.
And then what happened?
I'm looking at the details right now. It's another thing that just popped up.
We don't have much time.
And openly chatted about his reputation as a likely school shooter in social media messages posted in months before Tuesday's attack. I told you I didn't make that up. He asked his sister to buy him a gun as far back as September 21st, Texas DPS, McCraw said.
That's called a straw purchase.
Right. And she flatly refused, he said, of the sibling who is reportedly serving in the Navy, did not say what digital method they used to communicate.
And the fact that the sister flat out refused means that they knew something was wrong with him.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm gonna blame the mother. I mean, a lot of this stuff in life in general and who people are by the time they're 18, 19, 20, 21 reflects on the parenting. So I blame the mom.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's that. We've laid it out for you. And as tomorrow, Saturday, more is going to come out. More is going to come out throughout the weekend. And so this story is going to unfold, and eventually we'll get down to the truth of what actually happened. Because right now there's a lot of lies. There are a lot of holes in all the stories. The timelines don't make any sense whatsoever. And every time someone stands in front of a podium, the story changes, and it shouldn't change because it should be fairly simple. The reason why it's not simple is because you're trying to hide the truth. As always, more. We do? Oh, man. I was looking at time wrong. Okay. I was going to close it out.
Yeah, so was I.
Okay. All right. So we're good. We got another segment coming up. So when we come back, we're going to go over there's other news going on around the country. We'll talk about that when we come back from the break. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jack Jones here, and I get my gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so down in Houston, Texas, protesters are shouting outside the National Rifle Association as it began its annual convention on Friday, 3 days after a gunman killed 19 students, 2 teachers at an elementary school on the other side of the state, renewing the national debate over gun violence. Former President Donald Trump and other Republican leaders lined up to speak at the event. Leaders of the gun rights lobbying group plan to reflect on and deflect any blame for the school shooting in Uvalde. Hundreds of protesters angry about gun violence demonstrated outside, including some holding crosses with photos of the shooting victims. With the protesters, Democratic Beto O'Rourke, Robert there, who is challenging Texas Governor Greg Abbott in the governor's race, ticked off a list of previous school shootings and called on those attending the convention to join us to make sure that this no longer happens in this country. The time to have stopped Uvalde was right after Sandy Hook, according to O'Rourke. The time for us to have stopped Uvalde was right after Parkland, according to O'Rourke. The time for us to have stopped Uvalde was right after Santa Fe High School, and the time for us to stop the next mass shooting in this country is right now, right here today, in every single one of us, according to Beto O'Rourke. So some of the scheduled speakers and performers backed out of the event, including several Texas lawmakers and American Pie singer Don McLean, who said it would be disrespectful to go ahead with his act after a country's latest mass shooting. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said Friday morning that he had decided not to speak at an event breakfast after prayerful consideration and discussion with NRA officials. The NRA said that people attending the gun show would reflect on the Uvalde school shooting, pray for the victims, recognize our patriotic members, and a pledge to redouble our commitment to making our schools secure. The meeting is the first for the troubled organization since 2019, according to the AP. They're calling it troubled. Following a 2-year hiatus because of the pandemic, the organization has been trying to regroup following a period of serious legal and financial issues there, and that included a failed bankruptcy effort, a class action lawsuit, and a fraud investigation by the New York's Attorney General. Now, once among the most powerful political organizations in the country, the NRA has seen its influence, go down just a little bit following a significant drop in political spending. While President Joe Biden and Democrats in Congress have renewed calls for stricter gun laws in the wake of the Uvalde shooting, NRA board members and others attending the conference dismissed talk of banning or limiting access to firearms. Larry Miller, 56, from Huntington Beach, California, said he had no problem with the NRA meeting taking place so soon after the Uvalde shooting. He called the shooting very sad and unfortunate and said the gunman didn't have any respect for the people's freedoms that we have here in this country. We all share these rights, so to be respectful of other people's rights is to respect other people's lives. And I think with that kind of mentality, we should be here, according to what Larry Miller says. Samuel Thornburg, 43, a maintenance worker for Southwest Airlines in Houston, who was attending the NRA meeting, said guns are not evil. It's the people that are committing the crime that are evil. Our schools need to be more locked, more secure. They need to be more guards. And inside the convention hall, thousands of people walked around, stopping at booths that featured displays of handguns, rifles, AR-style firearms, knives, clothing, and gun racks. And outside, the police set up metal barriers at a large park where hundreds of protesters and counter-protesters gathered in front of the downtown convention center. People were yelling murderers. Some yelled in Spanish. Some said, "Shame on you." Others shouted at attendees. And among the protesters was singer Little Joe of the popular Tejano band Little Joe y La Familia, who said in the more than 60 years, I'm going to get you for that, he spent touring the world, and no other country he's been to has faced as many mass shootings as the U.S. What are you going to say? You making fun of the way I pronounce his name?
Little Joe y La Familia means Little Joy and the family.
Okay.
In case you don't know Spanish, Michael.
I don't know Spanish.
Do you want me to bring up this constitutional carry in Ohio here?
Oh, hold on. All right, so Texas has experienced a series of mass shootings in recent years, and during that time, the Republican-led legislature and governor have relaxed gun laws. So even if you go back to, the shooting that took place at the high school, we still got constitutional carry after that happened, So if you're thinking Texas is going to go like Florida or some other state, I think you're highly misguided. I don't think we're going to do that here in Texas. I don't think, the Republicans are going to allow that to happen. They're not going to put any restrictions on firearms. An 18-year-old, a high school senior who lives in Houston, suburb of Deer Park, held up a sign that had a bad word about Abbott's, making fun of Abbott's name. Those poor innocent souls did not deserve that, he said. I have a brother, I have cousins, and I want them to be safe. There is a precedent for the NRA to gather amid local mourning and controversy. The organization went ahead with a shortened version of its 1999 meeting in Denver, roughly a week after the deadly shooting in a Columbine High School in Colorado. Actor Charlton Heston, the NRA president at that time, told attendees that horrible acts shouldn't become opportunities to limit constitutional rights and be denounced critics for casting NRA members as villains.
All right, so in Ohio, constitutional carry goes into effect in a few weeks, and that means that applicants for, well, no, you won't have to apply anymore, but people will no longer have to apply for a concealed carry license, which required background checks from local sheriff's department, 8 hours of training with 2 hours of live training, and complete an exam that included an in-person physical demonstration of competency on handgun usage and rules for safe handling and storage of a handgun. That being said, it still is of much importance to always take a gun class, a safety class, and to know the laws when you carry a firearm.
And then,
so Ohio joins another state that's passed constitutional carry.
And just so you know, if you want to go through the timeline one more time of what happened, let's go through this real quick. The timeline of the Uvalde shooting. So 11:27 a.m. is the exterior of the door was left open by a teacher. It was propped open. That needs to be investigated. 11:28, the suspect vehicle crashed into a ditch near the school. 11:28, teachers run to room 132 to retrieve a phone and runs back to the door. The door is left open. At 11:28, two men at a funeral home hearing the crash move towards the scene. They see a man exit the passenger side of the car, gun, backpack. And 11:29, teachers panic and goes back into the school, apparently to call 911. 11:30, call 911, reporting a crash and a man with a gun. 11:31, suspect reaches the last row of the vehicles in the school parking lot. 11:31, the school resource officer drives past the suspect and goes to the back of the school, approaching someone he believes to be the suspect, but actually is a teacher. 11:32, more shots are fired towards the school. 11:33, the suspect enters the school. 11:33, the suspect begins shooting in room 111 or 112. They can't tell because there's no cameras there. 11:35, 3 police officers enter the school using the same exterior door that was used by the shooter. 11:37, more gunfire, 16 rounds. 11:40, more gunfire. 11:44, more gunfire. 11:51, 2 more officers arrive. 12:03, officers continue to arrive. 12:03, a woman calls 911 and whispers that she's in room 112. 12:10, the same woman calls 911 again. 12:13, the same woman calls 911 again. 12:15, members of the Border Patrol tactical unit arrive. 12:16, the woman calls 911 for a 4th time, saying 8 to 9 students are alive. 12:19, a girl in room 111 calls 911 but hangs up when another student tells her to. At 12:21, the suspect believed to be near the door fires again. 3 shots can be heard during a 911 call. 12:21, law enforcement moves down the hallway. At 12:36, 911 call lasting 21 seconds from a girl who had called before. The dispatcher tells her to stay on the line and be very quiet. At 12:43 to 12:51, the same girl calls 911 asking to please send the police now. At 12:46, she says she can hear the police next door. 12:50, officers breach the door using keys from the janitor because both doors were locked, and the suspect is shot and killed at 12:50. And mind you, this all started at 11:30 a.m. I think we go back to the basics when it comes to our security, when it comes to we need to maybe arm our teachers. We have 2 different programs here in Texas. We have the school marshal program and the school safety officer program. With those 2 programs, they're designed so that teachers are able to carry inside the school to protect the babies, to protect the kids. Unfortunately, we don't have that many school resource officers in the elementary schools. We need to go back to that and add officers to the elementary schools because the babies are unprotected. And also look at locking the doors, securing the doors, having someone assigned to each door to make sure that door is locked throughout the day. And then finally, we need to make sure that we do the right thing. Put all in place, and you need to be nicer to each other. And definitely pay attention to your loved ones and your siblings when something's wrong. As always, more guns equals less crime. You go out there and you buy yourself a gun. You've been listening to Come and Talking with Michael Cargill.